Well, faith in the media is at an all-time low right now, and especially for CNN, and even now after Hurricane Ian, the Weather Channel. So I don't know if you've seen these clips, but they're all over social media, and I know a few other YouTube channels have covered these stories. But I want to go a little bit more in depth. But what I'm talking about is over the last, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years, there's been all these conspiracy theories about somebody, manipulating the weather. Is the government controlling the weather? Are these governments around the world manipulating, the weather and making these hurricanes worse than they typically used to be? Are there more tornadoes now? Things like this. You've heard these conspiracy theories probably before, right? And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about faith in the media. Are these people reporting honestly? Are they putting a bias, a spin? And if they are, what's their agenda? Right? Because when you watch the news, you just want to hear what's the story, what's going on. And during Hurricane Ian recently, there's been a lot of footage that has been released, and I watched some of it myself when I was watching, the hurricane as it started to make landfall, because I've got family and friends in Florida, so this was kind of close to me and personal to me. And I started watching these reporters out on the street, reporting the hurricane. And so, like, here's a story from Philadelphia talking about the Weather Channel.
Channel is now responding to reports that one of their reporters was essentially faking it during his coverage of Hurricane Florence.
Probably seen the video on Facebook as that reporter struggles to keep his balance.
Okay, picking it up here in Wilmington, North Carolina, right at the Intracoastal, and we're in one of these bands.
So that's Mike Seidel in Wilmington, North Carolina. But as he braces and fights the wind Friday, check out the two guys who seem to walk right by him in the background there with no trouble at all. The video has been shared more than 1 million times on social media. So now a spokesperson for the Weather Channel is defending Seidel, saying it's important to note that the two individuals in the background are walking on concrete while Seidel tries to maintain his footing on wet grass. The spokesperson goes on to say Seidel was exhausted after reporting on air until 1 a.m.
Now, this is the kind of nonsense that makes people not trust the news. Mike Seidel has been reporting on the Weather Channel for many, many years, right? And has been a reliable, trustworthy meteorologist. And, he's out there acting like he's in, I know he's in hurricane force winds, but look at the people in that video behind him that are just walking very nonchalantly. The weather's not affecting them at all whatsoever. And, Mike is, leaning into the wind, bracing, holding on for dear life. And they say, well, he's in wet, slippery grass. Well, during this hurricane, if you've seen, especially the Weather Channel people, they were wearing like baseball helmets, like, something that looked like baseball helmets. They were either mountain climbing helmets or baseball helmets, but they were a hard shell helmet. These people didn't have on like shin pads, shoulder pads, any of this stuff. I expect to now see, Mike and these guys, Jim Cantori, on the beach in the next hurricane wearing like one of those canine outfits that the canine officers use when, the big thick padding, they get the helmet and all that stuff for when the dogs are practicing attacking people, like that kind of stuff. Like that, is that what we're going to see next? They're over dramatizing a story that is already dramatic. So like, what is your point in doing this? I think the vast majority of us completely support, trying to reverse, whatever's happening with the climate, right? So this is not denying climate change. We all know that this is happening. Global warming, the seas are rising, right? So this is not about this. It's, if your story is already full of drama, why are you increasing it with, constant hyperbole? Because then, it's like the boy who cried wolf. You keep doing these, this shenanigans that aren't necessary. It's like adding things to a television show or a movie that you're like, why did they add that? Certainly wasn't necessary to keep the story going, to keep the plot going. So why do they keep constantly doing this? And if the grass was so slippery, you spent all this money on the helmets and all this other stuff, why would you not get him football cleats? I mean, how many football games have you seen, in the NFL where it's super windy, the ground is soaking wet? There was just a game recently in Chicago, where the guys are sliding all over the place, but nobody was acting like they were holding on to anything for dear life, when they're when they're lined up for the plays. So I don't understand. And if you've got a guy out there, get him some cleats or something that is going to keep him better footed. But it's just this unnecessary, hyperbole, and it makes people mistrust the media. And now the Weather Channel, like we expect this from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. It's our lizard brain, right? Are we just getting so bored with the news? It has to be over dramatized. It's the only way we'll watch it if it becomes like a soap opera or a telenovela. You know, does he need to have somebody at, just next to him screaming at him about what a bad human he is? Would that make it even better? Is that what's next? Because Jim Cantore is doing the same thing. He's down there in Florida and he's out in the middle of the street. And you'll see in this video, like branches are coming towards him. Now they're not going 10 feet left of him. They're not going 10 feet right of him. They're literally coming right at him as if he's a magnet. There's no street signs. There's no billboards flying at him. There's no rooftops from buildings flying at him. They're branches and palm fronds. So it is almost as if when you watch this video, pay attention to Jim especially, and like just off screen, you can see in the foreground his producers and other people. And yeah, I know what you're going to say, that there's a wall, like a partition from the front of the building that they're filming in front of. But the cameraman and the producer are not there. They're out in the elements. So like the wall's not stopping the wind, right? And then out in the street, it almost feels, right, because you can't see it, but it almost feels like there's another producer who's grabbed a few items that's holding on to them and like, okay, we're released now, and it's, they drop it on the ground, so it's going to slide towards Jim's feet. Right? Why are these always things sliding on the street? Why are they not flying up in the air and hitting him in the face and knocking him over? So it almost feels like that's what's going on here, is a lot of fakery. And it's just, this is why media is losing any credibility. So check here, watch Jim. You tell me what you think, because it to me looks so staged, because he's fighting against, all odds to stand, straight up. Yet the people in the foreground, and like I said, some are behind a wall, but some aren't struggling at all. So you tell me.
Still recording, right?
Now, when Jim is making his way over to the sidewalk and you see the people that are there from the production crew, they're not moving. They're standing perfectly still. And again, I've seen this from many different angles, but there is a wall there. And so some people are in like an entrance way. And so I get it. They're not getting the bulk of the wind. But however, like even when you see the branches that are behind Jim after he starts moving, they're just kind of sliding around lazily on the ground. So it's almost as if these were launched at him, because this is what you would do in a movie, right? We watch old movies from back in the 30s and the 40s and 50s, and they'll be on a boat and there's somebody off camera, with a bucket of water, and they're splashing on them to make it look like the waves are just crashing over the edge of the boat. And that's what this looks like. That's what this feels like. And so when it's being covered by other channels, and there's just more and more of these. There's another CNN reporter, and he's I think they've taken the clip down because it's gotten so much, it's been talked about so much. They have a reporter who's like in like a city street, so you've got buildings on each side, and he's again doing this leaning into the wind. He can't hold himself straight, and he can't even talk. Like he's having oh, it's so hard to it's so hard to even talk right now. Like he's really struggling. And then behind him, two guys are just walking normally across right behind him to get into their car. Like, this is insane. Stop this. CNN's new management, new ownership say that they're going to change the way that they do things. They've just let a lot of people go. They want to get back to more, centrist reporting, no bias, just report the story and report the facts. This is Zaslav's new, motto over there, and they're not doing it. Like, when is the change going to happen? When are these media outlets going to stop this nonsense? Because it's everybody's running towards extremism. Here in Nashville, our local NBC has got a promo that they're running all over the place, YouTube and television, and they've got a catchy little country song, and it's called "Come On Back." And they're begging you to come back and start watching local NBC again. No, because you guys have been so nonsensical and ridiculous for years, and people here are sick and tired of it. You can't just do the local news. There's some kind of political bias. It's all this nonsense. And so, no, we're not coming back. And so when you're having to do a promotional ad begging customers to come back, how much more desperate does that make you look? How about you change? How about you get rid of all the people that were part of this nonsense, restaff, rehire, and, repackage yourself? This is what all the media needs to do, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, because I don't even consider Newsmax or OAN to be news. Those are just ridiculous YouTube channels that happen to be on television. So if the media wants people to trust them again, you've got to quit doing this over and over and over again. And then will we hear eventually some kind of apology? There was a hurricane a few years ago where one of the reporters is in like a little rowboat, and she's out in the street. And the visual that you're given is that the water's risen so high, I can't report from standing on the street because the water would be up to my neck. So I'm in this little rowboat. And no kidding, two guys walk right next to her, just right in the background. So they literally are like a foot away from the boat, walk right next to her. Like, what are you doing? This nonsense has got to stop. We're on to you. Everybody's on to you. And when these are getting millions of shares just on social media alone, not including what's going on here on YouTube and then me covering this, when are you going to learn? So it's the media that's manipulating the weather, not the government, not whatever. It's us, because we're not doing things to change, how we're treating this planet. And it's the media over sensationalizing things. So, what are your thoughts on this? Is this the news you like? Do you like this over dramatic news, or do you just want the news? Just tell me what's going on. Because the Weather Channel, when the hurricane was making landfall, near the Tampa area the other day, they kept airing commercials constantly. Like, this is a crisis. People are watching you, expecting to be getting and receiving vital information. Where's it going? Oh, it's moving a mile further north than what we projected. No, it's going south, than what we projected. We're watching this so we know. And the people who've lost power, but maybe have cell phone, family can call them and say, hey, I'm watching the Weather Channel right now, so you need to do this. They're saying that it's imminent. But you keep going to commercial. Like, this is not a time to make money. You do that in all the rest of the time. So can you just go strictly, non-commercial and help people? Like, this is a crisis. These are emergencies. But we'll be right back and give you some vital information after this advertisement from Applebee's. Right? And we remember that whole debacle with CNN. So just enough of this. Figure out what you're going to do. Figure out how you're going to gain our trust. We keep telling you what we want, and you don't give it to us, and you wonder why nobody's watching. You wonder why the ratings are down, and then you can't sell advertisement. Get it together. This is just a losing proposition, and it's not sustainable. More people. So after I saw a lot of this nonsense, I ended up going to YouTube, because that's where I watch most of my entertainment from anyway, and news. I'm finding more reliable sources of guys at home who are weathermen or have a meteorological background, and they've got a flat screen TV, and they're in their living room, and they're showing you from like NOAA or other weather sources, AccuWeather, and they're doing a better job in their home studio or their living room than the media. So again, it's the media that's manipulating the weather. not the government, not space lasers, not the HARP array, none of this nonsense. Because when you start doing this, when you keep doing this over and over and over again, you open a Pandora's box for the conspiracy theorists to say, see, I told you. And then probably this is who else is involved. Or is that your plan? So I don't know. Is that like, are they doing this intentionally because they know this will get more plays, this will get more clicks on YouTube when they keep doing this nonsense, and more people will watch? Because it's like professional wrestling, right? The kayfabe, like it's entertaining, but we know the outcome is already, decided. Stop it. Please just stop it and change, or you're going to end up going out of business because people just aren't going to watch anymore. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Let me know. I mean, does this stuff bother you? Do you want the media to change? You want them to be better? Do you want them to become more reliable and trustworthy? Or have you, like me, kind of just given up? Like that would be a class in media literacy, on how to understand the media. Turn it off. That's media literacy 101. Turn it off. Stop watching. And your life will be so much better. You'll have less stress. You'll have less anxiety. Because half the time, whenever they're telling you something is going on right outside your window, and you go look outside your window, that thing's not happening. They're just insane. There's riots right outside your apartment building. Go look, and you look, and what are they doing? There's nothing going on out. There's nobody out there. Let me know what your thoughts are. Leave a comment down below. If you like this video and you enjoy my content, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and make sure to hit the like button. I appreciate you very much. We'll talk to you next time on the John Malone Show.